I love to stroll through a garden and just linger. It's such a pleasure to surround myself with fragrant flowers. Well, this floral bouquet wall hanging looks like it came straight from the garden with its dimensional flowers filling the small checked basket. Well, the side triangles remind me of chintz. Now, chintz is that shiny, large floral bouquet fabric printed in France and England in the 1700s. The word chintzy means cheap, and it was coined because every scrap of chintz fabric was used or hoarded in such a miserly fashion. Now, this Wild Goose Chase quilt reminds me of the 1790 to 1850 era. I just love the large florals and the side triangles, and then they're combined with the sky blue geese and buttery yellow background. And it's finished with a wide floral stripe mitered at the corners. Now, the fabrics are all in similar values. It's just beautiful. In this double Irish chain, there are spacious, large-scale florals filling the open block, and then they combine with medium-scale prints running down the center of the chain. Well, the chain itself is a large-scale fabric reading as a solid. Ooh, and there's heavy contrast in the values between these fabrics. Well, stripes have always been popular for centuries. In this flying geese quilt, there are two different widths of stripes, with the narrow stripes in the middle of the quilt and then wider stripes framing the geese. I just love the graceful look in the stripe with those leafy areas and tendrils. It's just beautiful. Well, now this butterfly quilt is nostalgic looking with narrow stripes dividing vertical rows of blocks. The blue check side triangles are certainly refreshing. Now, to create these romantic looking quilts, you should pick a floral fabric with many screens of color. Just pull the colors from the flowers and use them as accents. And you can always add colors a couple of degrees lighter or darker. And go ahead and mix warm and cool colors too. So let's just take these floral fabrics and stripes and fussy cut them. The Snowball quilt is the perfect quilt for cutting florals into fussy cuts and stripes into borders. Well, there's a number of blocks in this Snowball quilt. We'll start right here with the Snowball block itself, that large scale floral right in the very center. And on each side are star blocks, two different colors. There's 5 purples and there's 4 blues. Now, it's actually a 9 patch with a medium scale fussy cut right in the middle of each one of those star blocks. And then to finish it off, to complete the star, corners are added in the appropriate colors to the Snowball block. Then there's one more block, and that's the chain block right here. It continues the dark between the 2 blue stars, and then right in the corners, more fussy cuts. Well, when you do it, you want to make sure you get all of your flowers growing upward, and that's a challenge. Well, this is my large scale print that I want to use today, and I particularly like this piece because there's a lot of background around that rose. Now, the block itself is around 7 1/4 inches. So I took a piece of template plastic at 7 1/4, drew an X on it, and then I actually taped it right to my ruler so I can use this as a template. We'll take that center part of the X and just kind of center it right on that rose. That looks good. And you also want to think about the grain. Line up the threads with the ruler when you cut. Okay, so I cut up on 2 sides. I'm just going to take this whole piece, turn it around, and drop the edges of the template right on the outside edges of the fabric and cut again. And there you have that rose centered right in it. This is for the Snowball block itself, and this is what it looks like right here. Now, to make the Snowball block, you take 2 3/4 inch squares, put them right in the corners, draw diagonal lines on them. You just sew on those diagonals, fold them out, and then trim away what's underneath. Now you need to plan every single one, because for this one, it's going to be beside the blues. See, the roses are upright in this position, upright right here. Now this piece is a 2 3/4 inch square. So I have the medium scale print right here, and to utilize my ruler, I put that 2 3/4 inch template with the X right on the opposite corner. So all you need to do is just cut up and around, then take this piece, turn it, and put the corners right on the cut edges, and cut again. You end up making your whole piece of fabric into a cheesecloth, but it works great. Looks like Swiss cheese in the end. And then this piece is going to go right here in the middle, like that. Just make your 9 patch and your snowball blocks. Now the stripe is a whole different story. Oh, and what a story. This one has wide stripes and narrow stripes all in one piece. And in between them, there's a 1/2 inch so that you can just cut right down through the middle. Now this particular piece has 5 wide stripes in it, 4 for each for the size, and then you can go ahead and use the 5th one for a fussy cut. I'll show you how to do that on the fan, but right now I'm just going to take my 6 by 24 inch ruler, lay out my stripe, and you just place the 1/4 inch line right on the edge of this dark line right here. Just center it and cut right down through the middle. Now it's time saving if you just go ahead, move your ruler, and cut at least a short distance the whole way down, and then once you have this distance cut the whole way across, just pull your fabric closer and continue cutting your stripe. Well, let me do that, and I'll show you how to add this to a block and miter it. I'm adding a stripe border to this small 9-block snowball wall hanging. Boy, you've got to do some thinking when you work with your stripes. First of all, measure the side of the quilt plus the width of the stripe and an extra 3 or 4 inches on the end before you cut it. Little bit extra for safety's sake. This is going to be on both sides. And then do some planning before you actually cut your stripe, because I thought it would be just perfect if I lined up a large flower straight across from the snowball block. But then when I got down here in the end, I saw that I would just have partial large flower. So with just a little manipulating, if you go ahead and center your flowers off each side of the block, then all you have are just flowers in the corners. A lot easier to work with. Now when you're sewing, you use that 1/4 inch seam. On this particular stripe, there's that dark line, so you can just go ahead, stitch the 1/4 inch right along that dark line, and I put a dot 1/4 inch from the edge, and whenever you fold it back, you'll see you stop 1/4 inch on both of the stripes, and this is what that corner looks like. Well, let me show you how to miter it. I'd like to just work right on my pressing mat, get it all pressed in place, pinned in place for sewing. So just take one stripe, lay it out flat, and the seam is pressed towards that stripe. Then take the top one and fold it under on an angle and line up those stripes out in the ends. Let me fiddle with this just a second. Okay, looking good. I've got the stripes lined out here. They're lined up right in the corners. And then before you even do some pressing, go ahead and just lay your ruler right in the corner and make sure you've got that 45, you've got your square edges. Perfect. So then just press it, set it, and peel it back and carefully put pins in right in place, because this is where you're going to stitch. Like to just pin it together, and then your stitching line is this crease that you created. You just sew from the outside edge and stop 1/4 inch in right here on that dot. Fold it out, and then you have that perfect miter right there. But I have another way of doing it. I think this is the cheating way, and oh, I even like the cheating method. Well, on this one, I folded it exactly as I showed you, but then with invisible thread. I actually used red thread so you could see it, but you could use invisible thread and the blind hem stitch, and stitch from the right side so you know that it lines up perfect. Well, my sister Patty and I were making a stripe border. We could not get it lined up right, so we did even one more cheat. We just took a little flower and we put paper back fusing on the back side, and then just laid it on the miter, fused it in place, stitched around there, and everybody thought it was a perfect miter. Well, I have another quilt. I have a fan quilt. I want to show you how to do fussy cuts and stripes. The fan quilt is very old-fashioned looking, set together in vertical rows. There's two different colorways. There's the pink and the green, set together in alternating order. Now, my sister Patty made this one, and she is the queen of fussy cut. She fussy cut out her little quarter circles and used rickrack to turn under the curved edges. It's so cute. Then the vertical rows are set together with the narrow stripe, and then the wider stripe is used around the four sides. Well, you can take this fan and turn it into a table runner. Now, this is exactly the same size fan on the end, set off with two smaller fans. It looks really cute. Now, the rickrack is used to help quick turn the batting and the backing around, and then finished off with some machine quilting. Oh, you could do fans in reproduction fabrics, soft pastels with rickrack, or you could do your fans in contemporary fabric like I'm going to do. Now, there are 4 different colors per fan. You start out with the dark, go into the medium, the very center one is the light, and then you repeat it again with the medium out to the dark. Well, this is fabric number 1. This is number 2. I'm just going to start flipping these right sides together into pairs. 2 onto 1, 4 onto 3. Got this one here. We're going to have one lonely little strip right out here. And then take those pairs and just stack them. I'm setting them up so they're in perfect order for sewing. I don't need to reorganize them. Now, once they're stacked, take your template for your wedge. This is what it looks like. Place it on the straight of the grain, and then with a permanent marking pen, just trace around the outside edge. Then once you have one done, you just turn it, alternate it, and just keep on tracing fans the whole way across your strip. But you know me. I'm always in a hurry, so I'm just going to show you on one of them. On the straight edge, I like to take the ruler, just cut up this way, turn the ruler, and cut the second way. Okay, now I like to actually cut that curve with a pair of scissors, but if you're good with a rotary cutter, just go ahead and do it that way. Trim these off, take all of these, just get rid of them. Now I'm going to set this stack near my sewing machine. They're ready to sew, but I want to show you how to do the quarter circle. This is a little fussy cut here. Okay, this is the quarter circle, and I drew a line down through the center just to help place on the flower. So lay it on there, center that line right down through the center of the flower, grab the permanent marking pen, and just trace around that quarter circle right along here, and then across the bottom. And take the template, flip it over for this flower. It's going the opposite direction. I'm going to center it. I'm going to go right down into this little blue stripe, but that will actually end up in the seam allowance, so I don't need to worry about it. Across the bottom. And once again, if there's a straight edge, you might as well just use your ruler to cut in between. So I'm just going to go across this one, move it along, across this one. How about I just turn this one and cut this way, trim off that edge, and then all I have is that curve. Do it with scissors if you would like. And that flower is just centered in there perfectly. Looks so pretty. Get rid of this. I'll show you what to do with those pieces later. Okay, now the fan is all in order, so use your stiletto. Just lift up the top 2. They're already right sides together. Separate them out. Just use that perfect 1/4 inch seam. And this is the best of assembly line sewing. Gosh, you could just sit down and sew mindlessly forever. Well, I guess that's just what Patty's been doing. I went over to visit her at her house. She has fans everywhere. It is the house of fans. My goodness, I think her house is just gonna fly away if she makes more fans. Okay, line this one up. And there's that one single piece. Just leave it sitting there. Now the pressing is important because you want to get the seams going in the right direction. So drop the chain with the stitching across the top. Just set that seam and then open, press right against the seam. And if I'm lucky, they're going to be in perfect order. We'll see. So just take these now and clip them back apart. Let's see. Got that? This is looking good. All right, and then just this little extra wedge right in the end. Perfect. Check as you go. So much easier to check as you go so you don't have to unsew later. Okay, I'm just going to take the first 2 pairs, flip them right sides together, and then take that single wedge and just flip it onto the pair and assembly line sew that one right behind. Now at this time, don't need to go back and press. Just take these pairs, these pieces, flip them apart, open them up, check, make sure, flip these back, right sides together. You know, if you were doing a whole quilt, you would just have chains of these just going one after the other, and it's so much easier. If you get one right, you're going to get them all right. You get one wrong, you're going to get them all wrong. So take this piece now, and from the back side, just press it around in the same direction the other seams were going. Then you can just turn it over, press it from the right side. Now these raw edges are finished off with rickrack. Oh, such an old-fashioned concept. You take the rickrack, line it up on the top edge, and you want to just sew right down through the middle, all along there, and then just assembly line that 1/4 circle right behind until you have all of the edges covered. This is what it looks like. One piece I did a head, sewed it right down through the middle, and then you just turn under that raw edge, place it on a 7-inch background square, and line up the outside edge. Let's see, get that lined up here, and just stitch in the ditch right through the rickrack and the fan. Your blocks will be perfect. When you're making fussy cut quilts, you turn your fabric into Swiss cheese. Well, I have the perfect project for you to just use up all of these extra pieces. It's just a really cute basket of flowers, and it's easy to do. Let's take a look at it. Now, when you're putting your fabrics together, you have a number of different pieces. First of all, you have your background fabric, and all the backgrounds should match. Then you have some pieces that are medium scale prints. This has been fussy cut right here. And then you have more dense pieces that's actually the center of the flower. And then out around the edges, you have some light edge pieces. And those pieces can be put together into this beautiful basket. Well, let me show you. You know, I picked up every single piece I threw on the floor. This is my piece from the miter, and this is the piece from the 1/4 circle right here. All you need to do is just go ahead and stack them up and cut them into 2-inch squares. So just use your ruler, and I'm going to just trim off this way. Turn this piece around, line it up at 2 inches this way. How about that good old fussy cut flower right there? I'd really like to keep that. So I'm just going to cut this way, keep that piece, and I've even got an edge piece right beside it. One more cut, and I'm going to have a whole stack of other pieces. Actually, I think I'll just get rid of some of these. Well, then you go ahead and divide them into pieces like this. This is your background right here. This is your edge piece right here. We've got some dense pieces like the center of the flower, and then the little medium fussy cuts. The next product that you need is fusible interfacing. Now it's printed with a 2-inch grid. And this is the back side. This is the smooth side. The side that we want to use is the bumpy side. This is the fusible side. Oh my gosh, get that right. You'll only make that mistake once. The piece is cut in a rectangle. It's 10 inches or 10 squares across by 12 squares down so that it's a rectangle. Okay, take your background squares and just place them on the fusible side. You want to do around 3 rows of your background color across the bottom, the whole way across. And I'm just going to do this quickly. We'll then start going up into the bouquet. You want to put some of your big flowers right along there, arrange them, and then along the outside edge, you want to have your edge pieces like this. More background around the outside. Well, of course, I have one that's all set together. Okay, and once you place all of your pieces on your fusible interfacing, then you just take it to the iron pressing mat, press it down so that it sticks in place. And once that's down, then all you need to do is just fold on the line. It's in perfect order. Just stitch right down along and do every vertical row from top to bottom. And once you've stitched the vertical rows, then you just clip in 1/4 of an inch so you can go back across the other way. Oh, it's so easy to do. You'll have it done in a jiffy. And then the flower basket is just so easy to do. It's using that fusible interfacing again. This is what it looks like. And it's actually been stuffed so you have some dimension. And this is one of the flowers that you can put on the top. I just took the fusible interfacing and put the fusible side against the right side of the fabric. You just draw around that flower, stitch on the line, trim it, turn it, and then this is what it looks like. So you can just go ahead and place those right on top of the partial flowers, and it looks so cute. Add the narrow stripe border around 3 of the sides, and then finish the bottom off with a lace doily and a tabletop. It's just great fun. So don't get fussy, just chop up those large scale prints and frame them with a beautiful stripe. All aboard for the Upper Mississippi. In late June 2001, my assistant Sue, her son Dylan, and 50 Quilt in a Day friends joined me on the American Queen in St. Louis. The paddle started turning. Well, from Missouri, we thought we were headed for Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. But high water sent us south through Tennessee and Kentucky. The calliope played on. We had to change our route, but we were all happy. We each made a checked basket with large-scale floral triangles, and we filled it with the Iowa Wild Rose, Missouri Hawthorn, Wisconsin Wood Violet, and Minnesota Lady Slipper. I entertained the ladies with a lecture on flying geese. And when we weren't quilting, we spent time on the deck and enjoyed day cruises. Our favorite stop was Paducah, Kentucky. Oh, there's plenty of antique stores and quilt shops to visit. So much to see just walking through the town. Oh no, a quilt treasure I left behind. What was I thinking? But I was off on the search for even more treasures. And on return to the boat, I viewed the fine historical paintings on Paducah's public dock. We were back to sewing on our project.
Do you have? More. Do you cut them in half? No.
Dottie was determined to finish. Everyone concentrated on getting their flowers appliqued to their baskets. And ooh, that striped border needed a perfect miter. Everyone wanted to go home with a machine quilted and bound wall hanging. We had a wonderful time as we established lasting friendships on the Mississippi River.